Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first vodcast from the Bennington Regional Chamber of Commerce, what we're calling Marketing Vermont, and we'll talk a little bit about vodcasting in a minute. I'm Matt Harrington, one of your hosts here. I'm the Executive Director of the Bennington Regional Chamber of Commerce, but also have a 10-year experience in the marketing world, and we'll talk a little bit today about why marketing was the topic of choice for this specific podcast. But without further ado, I do want to also introduce Aaron. Aaron, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, Aaron Fry. I'm a consultant with the Chamber. I've been in digital marketing for over 10 years and grew up in Vermont and just love the Green Mountains, so I'm pretty excited about this project.
Cool. So let's dive right into vodcasting and what the heck is that, and then why marketing for this topic and why you're on with me.
Right.
So like you said, we've used you for the last 2 years. I know I've known you for many years. We've done multiple campaigns together, and you're helping right now with the Shires of Vermont, Explore the Shires campaign as well. But also the idea of vodcasting. And vodcasting is nothing more than, right now we're recording a podcast that'll go out on the various channels that people can download and listen to monthly. We hope to do this monthly for our audience. But also we want to videotape it too. And we're going to talk a little bit about kind of doubling down on content or making good use of the time that you have with multiple content streams. But really just also the power of video on our social platforms, in newsletters, the power of video, and while we're recording a podcast, why don't we also record video of it? And so that's what becomes a vodcast or video podcast. In terms of marketing, I think from my perspective, and I do want you to weigh in here, Aaron, from the Chamber's perspective, we've got a lot of irons in the fire, talking about a lot of issues. One of the huge issues that came up in our 2018 State of the Commerce and also the membership was marketing, was small business marketing, and especially around, not that it's exclusive, but it's a lot around social media, digital marketing. It's a brave new world. You and I probably feel like it was a brave new world 10 years ago.
Right.
And like, what do we do? What are we waiting so long? So talk to me about that brave new, like why social media? Like haven't we talked about that or are people exhausted about that? Why marketing?
Well, I think as far as social media, it's just a matter of where the attention is. So right now, most people are on their phones more than they're watching TV or doing other things. So it makes a lot of sense to go where the people are. And for small businesses that might have limited budgets for marketing, I think you want to get the biggest bang for your buck. And I think that's what social media provides. So it can be a little overwhelming when you first get started thinking about how do I do another thing when I'm already running my business and doing all the day-to-day stuff. But I think we'll go through some ways that it'll to kind of free you up and make it a little less daunting, and I think we have some ways to do that. So
I was talking to a couple businesses the other day, or people, and I said, first we're a media company now, and then we're everything else. Well, first we're a media company about ourselves, and then we're a banner that puts out a newspaper.
Right.
First we're a media company, and then we're a chamber that has to work with all the other intricacies of a chamber. First we're a media company, and then we're a flower shop or a bakery. And really, a lot of that has to be with macro, high level, kind of your belief structure. And I think one of the things we do struggle with in terms of Southern Vermont, and we'll definitely find out with this podcast, even podcast is very progressive. You go to any urban place, podcast user rates have skyrocketed over the last 2 years.
Right.
I would dare to say that in Southern Vermont, that's not the case. Unless maybe you're at the gym and you're trying to download something, educational while you go on your run. But I think those are far and few between. So it's interesting that that we're doing podcasts, we're doing vodcast, and really trying to use this as an example for members to say, half of the energy that the chamber does is really around and marketing, social media, communication.
Right.
It's communication, storytelling. But it's all under the big platform of communication, whether that's I'm communicating at an annual meeting, but I also record it and I also share it. I also do a Facebook Live, but really whatever communicates to your audience. And I think you hit the nail on the head with that's where the attention is. So your audience of 20 years ago that would look at a newspaper and see an ad for $20 off of roses, they're just far and few between. And what's amazing, I want you to talk a little bit about this, but like the ROI and the measurement of social is so much stronger. Like it's interesting that just from a business perspective, that it's harder to pull people away from what they know, which is print and radio and all those things. And the first question I always ask is like, well, what's your return on investment? Like if you bought a 400-page ad in a newspaper, how many people saw it? And well, who knows? I mean, you know the general macro impression of it. You know, well, our newspaper goes to 30,000 people, but who actually saw your ad?
Right.
You do something like this, and I'll know by the end of the day who's listening, even their demographic, but even just impressions on Facebook or Instagram or even news. You know, look at your e-newsletter, you're mailing that out, you've got these things on it. I can see who clicks on it.
Yep. No, I think the metrics are getting better and better. The targeting's getting better and better. And, you know, just to use that like newspaper analogy, what if you could run a newspaper ad and then know and track every person that actually liked your ad and were interested in it? That's what we can do with social. So at the end of the year, you run your newspaper ads and you have 5,000 people that liked it. You can then follow up with them with other deals and other kind of specials. So it's really cool. And I think there's really simple ways to get started. And you kind of build from there as far as with your targeting and your tracking and your audiences and stuff.
I know we've even, you know, in a rural setting, and knowing also, I think from a chamber perspective, we're supporting those institutions. So I still do buy some print ad in at least very dense, concentrated ways. But I also take the artwork that I sent them and I put it on Facebook. And then that's an interesting parallel of like, you know, some people really do call us up or whatever, or they see us and they say, I saw the congratulations to the Chamber Award winners on the back of the Bennington banner. And I go, awesome. And then I can go to my Facebook page and there's, you know, 300 likes on that as well. So I also, in the name of this show of kind of duplicating on content, you can also be doing, you know, taking content that would normally be on radio, be doing podcast. There's many a times I've gone into WBTN and taken a photo or done a Facebook Live while I'm also recording the radio thing, so that I'm, especially for my time and now everybody's time, like why wouldn't you want to get 3 pieces of content out of something as opposed to one thing? And it's a mindset. It's changing to. I mean, even in the radio station, who should be doing media, we're like, oh, you're going to record this too? And I'm like, yeah. So.
No, and I think it's important to say, you know, we might use some analogies around newspapers or print, and we're not saying that we are against print. Like you said, the chamber still uses it. I think it's still important to use, but we're just trying to maybe ramp up digital and help companies do that, but know that print still has its role.
Yeah. We did a social media lunch and learn a couple weeks ago. And I said something, and I've had some people not call me out on it, but they're like, well, that's interesting. And I say it more for impact than I think in reality, but I do think there's always an 80-20 rule with a lot of things in business.
Right.
And one of the challenges I said to that group of people, I said, look, you're normally 80-20 in terms of traditional and now digital. So 80 in traditional media and 20 in social and digital platforms. Right. I challenge you to switch that up. Put 80% of your budget, energy, time, design, thoughtfulness into social and digital, and maybe 20% into you know, concentrated bursts. You know, I think of like Upcountry being a very concentrated magazine in this local area of Southern Vermont. Very concentrated burst if I want to, you know, put a nice big ad in terms of Wings and Winter Homebrew. But I'm also big on like, you better make an impact in that magazine. So if you don't have the dollars to buy the half page or full page, there's an argument saying that your 1/4 page or 1/8 page is not having the impact you want to have, and you're doing what you've always done because that's what you've always done.
Yep, and I think we're going to talk a lot about a lot of different digital things to do. I think one of the important things, as maybe we talk about influencers and bloggers, maybe we talk about audio podcasts, we talk about YouTube. I think it takes like a variety of those things working together to really get the most bang for your buck and the most impact.
Yep.
So as we go through these different episodes, I think it's important that people know that we're not saying just do one of these things. Figure out which ones which of these fit your business, and then go from there.
Well, and I think the challenge is, and why we're doing this specific vodcast, is people absolutely do the comprehensive marketing for your small business, for your state, for your rural community. Absolutely. Right. The problem is it's 80%. When we have these discussions, it's 80% in which magazine do we want to be placed in for the Garlic Fest versus saying we need to just have a stronger conversation about the power of social and digital. And I think it's just an old mindset that needs to be changed. So we're hoping that this podcast says, hey, why don't I, even if I put, I've only posted on Instagram or only posted on Facebook and I've never boosted, so let me put $10 behind a boost. Well, good, that's $10 more than you spent in 2018.
Right.
And my challenge would be to say in 2019, put it to 100, and in 2020, just I think absolutely with the comprehensive marketing, but I think, and I don't think we would have to say the same message maybe in urban areas, but in rural areas, I think we need to have a stronger conversation that the comprehensive means that you spend a lot of time on the social and digital because there is so much bang for your buck. There is so much ROI.
Yep, and I think we'll also probably be putting out some additional content for you guys outside of this podcast, maybe some downloads or some white papers, because I think boosting is one of those things that people are confused about sometimes. And if you just generally do a Facebook boost without tweaking some settings, you're actually probably not going to get as much out of it. So maybe we'll give some tools like that too, as far as ways to make sure you're still getting your target audience when you're spending that $10. And I think that's going to be really helpful too.
Yeah, one of the topics, and we kind of, since we're talking about a comprehensive marketing budget, and I think in each episode we want to break this apart into our specific audiences.
Right.
And we'll kind of mention that as we go through our episodes, which is, hey, this is for small businesses, 100 employees or less. This is for maybe communities that are trying to rebrand themselves, and this is for the state agencies. And then, this could be for rural Oregon or rural Washington as much as it is for Vermont. So I think Aaron and I are always going to try and say, when we're talking about this specific thing, here's who we think we're talking to, and obviously help us with that. But while we're on comprehensive marketing plan, because we know the state has it, why don't we talk a little bit about small businesses? And I think one of the things that we run into, and I'm not sure I have a full answer for this, because I was a small business once and we didn't have a marketing budget. It was just kind of like, do what you need to do until you can't do it anymore. And I got to tell you, on the receiving end, that's a very, very hard thing to do because you never know when you can't plan. And any, the last 10 years, you and I both know that marketing is really a lot about just media planning. Right. So if I put all my chips into February to June and we run out of money, I have no marketing for June to December. Yep. That's very, very bad. And so, I was talking to another media person last night, and just asking them, what have you run into in terms of how much people should put away? And that person said about 7 to 10% of what you're making as a business, 7 to 10% should make up your marketing budget. And I think that's the first good challenge on this podcast. Right. Is like, can you take 2017, 18 or 2016, 17, 18, find an average of what you made, because we've been in such this kind of change zone. So I don't want you to take a really good year or a really bad year and make 7% and put away 7% for marketing, but take an average of those last 3 years and look at what 7%. I wouldn't even care if you made 5%. Start small, because I don't think a lot of small businesses are doing it at all. So what if you took 5% of your profit of what you're making, top sales, and put marketing, like just play with the concept. So if you get $10,000 out of that, I'm just making up a number. Yep. What would you do with it? Like if you gave yourself permission, this is the cost of doing business is I got to take 7%, I got to take 5%, I got to take 10%, whatever those numbers are, out of my business operating expenses to focus on marketing. Yep. What would you do with 10,000? What would you do with 20,000? Aaron, what would you do?
I definitely do some stuff on social, and I think it's important too. Like maybe our big challenge here is to, if you don't have a marketing budget, talk to a local, whoever your financial advisors are. Even just don't just listen to us. Talk to them, and like just for a little bit, so you can educate yourself on what that number should be, if it's the 5 or the 7, and then start brainstorming and planning, because I think that's the starting point.
I already see where this series is going, and it's going to put more work on you and me.
Right.
But I think the takeaway, I think the call to action and the help that you and I can provide, not only in doing this monthly, but like probably after this, I'm going to go research small business marketing budgets, and what if we provided our audience with a template?
Right.
So at the end of this show, if you go into the comments or you go onto our website at Bennington.com, that's where this show will be hosted at the current moment. Aaron and I will work our best to provide some of the it's just a little bit of extra gasoline in the tank to maybe help a small business person go, you know what, I don't know where to start with 7% versus Marketing Vermont podcast gave me just a running ramp to get onto a highway. And maybe, so I think as we kind of go through these series, let's make some promises to our audience that, you know what, you and I could probably easily sit down and say, if we had $10,000, so maybe we'll use a hypothetical in the template, or say 7%, of the 100% of your 7%, I would put 20% into print, so on and so forth. Might be an interesting thing to follow. And also you and I talked about the media year. So like, how do we do that? Like maybe there's some, we want to make sure you spend all of your print social boost by May, and then you're not. So I think in that template, maybe there's some other things we can, kind of the longevity of your money.
Yep, and I think Vermont, every state, every town, city has different what they call seasons, of whether it's related to ski mountains or it's horse shows or whatever. And so maybe thinking about how to plan around those things is important. And yeah, I think we'll come out with some kind of template. And I think definitely just to kind of tease that a little bit, like I think definitely every business needs a key video that they use, even if you start with one major minute and a half, 2-minute video per year. That's like your main thing. I think you need that piece of media, and then posting daily, which I know sounds a little bit overwhelming, but don't think of it as creating something new. Just think about it when you start out as like just telling your story of what you're doing that day. And I think that's a good starting point for people.
I've often said, and I'll go really tactical on this and really drill down, I've often said to many of our members who say, how do I market, how do I even begin? And I even start with once a week. But I think you and I have talked about even daily, just with the need for more video and content, just from 2019 to 2017, will require more content. Because that's what people are digesting, and that's what the search engines are digesting. So that's going to be necessary. So with that, I'm often saying, like if you're a gym person, like if you're running a gym or maybe you're a fitness coach or something like that, every day you should be waking me up, telling me to get my butt out of bed, and telling me to drink 2 glasses of water, do 20 push-ups, and say a prayer or whatever. You know what I mean? So I think there's like plenty of room for that. I mean, and you and I always joke around, but The Rock is obviously very good at constant content, and a lot of that is, not. I don't think he means to do it, maybe a little bit, but it's motivational, right? Like now he's got the Iron Gym or Iron Paradise, and he's reporting out every couple days. So I think you're right, Aaron, where, again, I would sit down with any business that said, what could I do? I think you and I could probably come up with 52 topics they could talk about, about flowers, gym, bakery, insurance. So yeah, absolutely. And Facebook Live. I think that start there, eventually call up your local access television. Cat TV is filming today. There's so many resources. It's amazing.
Well, and I think we should turn this into like a little bit of a case study / example for right now. I'm not sure, you might watch this down the road, but we're recording this at the start of February. So I think I think we didn't really talk about this. I know there's going to be a challenge.
I flung things on you already today, so you can fling things on me.
There's a separate challenge that we have going about Facebook Live, which we'll talk about later. But I think something we can plan right now is the month of February with our Shires project to make sure to kind of see the effect of actually every single day having the story go out,
Yeah.
the post go out, and I think showing maybe in our episode, a couple episodes down the road, we'll come back and talk about
Yeah.
the positive effects of
Yeah,
that.
what did that do? And I think I just sent you a text this morning about just, we've been putting even this week a lot out on various different things on our Facebook.
Yep.
And that platform got a boost this
Yep.
week by like 3,000. So that was just kind of interesting. And I love that Facebook kind of encourages you that way, which says, hey, you know, you're putting out a lot more and you're getting a lot more likes and,
Yep.
and things like that. You know, and I think there could be conversations, you know, if not now, maybe in future episodes about what exactly is that like?
Right.
What exactly is that audience? What exactly is that engagement? And I think there's a lot of concern, especially from small business, especially from people of the older world,
Yep.
that says, okay, I got 15 hearts or likes. Did that get me more people into my store? So I and we'll talk a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about funnel.
Right.
So top of the funnel stuff, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel sales.
Yeah.
So I think that's got to be a conversation that you and I perhaps have with our audience as well, for sure.
No, definitely. And I think one of the things that it's important for people to know too is like, we're not just going to recommend stuff that we think is cool. We're actively implementing. I have multiple clients. Matt has the
440
chamber.
businesses.
Yeah.
I'm always stretching.
Yeah, so we're recommending stuff that we've either done in the past or are currently doing, and so just keep that in mind as we challenge you guys. Like, this is these are things that we believe in. Otherwise, we wouldn't recommend them.
Why don't you talk about your challenge that you gave me for the month of February?
Yes. So Matt is very active with the chamber, and being his friend, also consultant, I'm like, man,
I'm not sure you're a friend anymore
Right?
after this.
I'm like, people need to know what the chamber's doing and what you're doing on a regular basis, because I see you grinding and working hard every day.
Yeah.
So I'm like, every day do a live and
Yeah.
just tell people what you're doing that day. And I think it's going to help more people know, and I think there's going to be a lot of benefits to that.
So just so that's clear, on every business day in February, Monday through Friday, I will attempt to do, and honestly, to Aaron's point, I will attempt to do 1 to 2 minute videos. So not 5, not 10, because
Right.
that's what this station is for. This is what Pod, VOD, you know, Made in the Shires is for.
Yep.
So I think there's a discussion about content and length.
Yep.
So what I want to be able to do is come back to all of you
Yep.
at the next show and say, hey, we did try this, and here's what it looked like. And oh, by the way, it wasn't 30 minutes. It wasn't even 5 minutes on Facebook Live. It literally took 2 minutes. And if I'm walking to work, if I'm having a break, even if I'm leaving work,
Yeah.
I can report out about the day. And that's kind of the thought process behind that. And if I can do it, you can do it kind of thing. And so the chamber will be attempting that. I think the other thing we got to make clear, at least in this first episode, and we don't have to keep going back to it, but there are pretty much, the way that I'm working, there are 2 main marketing campaigns. And one marketing campaign is the Shires of Vermont tourism, destination marketing, come play, eat, dine, stay, lodge, recreate here. And that's a campaign of into itself. And we either call that the Shires of Vermont campaign, or we call it the Explore the Shires campaign. So if you hear Aaron and I referencing, that's what we're talking about. And please go check out those social channels and like it and follow us, because, you know, watch what we do kind of thing.
Right.
And then the second one is more around what Aaron just talked about, which was the chamber. So one, I think it's more of a this specific Facebook Live challenge is talking to membership and maybe some stakeholders that are on the page that don't know what's going on with the chamber.
Right.
Within all of that, there is also an emerging campaign called Shirenomics, which will be about economic and business development in the Shires of Vermont, both as a recruitment and retention tool, but there will be videos, part of this vodcast to explain marketing and help our small businesses with marketing fall under that Shirenomics. So Shirenomics, just be thinking, is much more around economic development. So there'll be articles, blogging, videos, And then even this podcast is under Shirenomics and business and economic development and that sort of thing. And then we have Shire of Vermont campaign, which really goes out to, it's almost like internal somewhat and then external to the world. And that's the Shires one. So just for clarity's sense, when we move forward on this podcast.
No, definitely. And I think it's important to know, too, that, I grew up in Vermont. I have a huge love for Vermont. And I know you've lived here a while, too, and grew up nearby. Yeah. So we definitely care. We want to see Vermont businesses grow and succeed, not just in the Shires, but the whole state. And I have another project called Vermonter Made that I'm kind of building out. And that's to help creators and artists and makers in Vermont to succeed. There's so much talent in the state, and that's some of the stuff we're working on.
I was gonna beef you up a little bit because really, honestly, the day that we actually really decided to go in with you was when kind of Vermonter Made had crested over that 10,000 followership, and what I realized was that you were a practitioner of what you were selling. Yeah. You had built up that Instagram following. You had done it in less than a year, which I thought was amazing because those of you that know, Instagram is a lot harder to get its followership. It's much more engaging platform, but it's harder to build. So when I saw that, I said, look, if nothing else, he's in the grind too with his own personal brands that he's managing. Yeah. And so if he can do it for Vermonter Made, I think he can do it for the Shires of Vermont. And that's kind of some back history for you and me. But that was definitely a time that I realized, okay, this guy practices what he preaches. For sure.
It is hard to build, but once you get real followers, it gets pretty fun and we've seen things kind of increasing with the Shires too, as we get over a couple thousand followers. And it's important to know too, there are a lot of ways to spend a lot of money in marketing, but there's also, like with Instagram, for instance, there's a lot that you can do just by rolling up your sleeves. And whether you have talent yourself or someone on your staff where you can put them to work, and I think you can get a lot out of that without it being super expensive. Because I know, again, back to the budgets, Vermont businesses are, have to kind of figure out what fits for them.
Yep. Well, it goes back to our original message, which is you are now a marketing company, a media company, a communication company, and you also sell flowers. Right. And you also, so like, even watch what we do, the turn, and I'll share with people various ways that we're doing this. And we're a machine and we're an entrepreneurial chamber in the sense that we tinker with things and see if they work.
Right.
And I'm not going to preach that we've got the perfect solution, but what we have done, the switch that we've made in the 3 years, is that 3/4 of my talent that I hire, not my talent, Aaron, Charisse, Joe, Mike Cutler, I'm thinking Loriana pictures, Samantha pictures, Adam Agnew, like the Chamber Media Project team is deep because I believe so much in first you're a communication company and then do whatever you need to do, because we're in such a world where people need to be communicated to. If you're not being talked about or you're not selling the narrative or pitching the narrative, they're not talking about you, and so you're going to be forgotten. So I'm very big in, and I'm thankful that I came from a place of communication, a place of marketing, because I think it gave me the tools. It also, macro again, it gave me the belief. First the belief, now I got to go find these people, but I fundamentally believe that I need a videographer. I fundamentally know that I need high-res images at all my festivals. Yeah. I fundamentally know I need 1 to 2 good writers, including myself, and we'll talk a little bit about my day locked away in an apartment cranking out 32 blogs in so many hours, which that's another challenge for another day.
Yeah.
But, as we start to wrap up, we've kind of talked about at the end of these podcasts, at the end of Marketing Vermont, this podcast, we want to kind of create a call to action for people. So do you have anything in mind for this audience that as a consultant you would say, hey, it's Friday, Monday, start the game this way?
Yeah, I think maybe two challenges on this first one. One is if you don't have a marketing budget, figure out what that would look like, whether it's with your team, your co-owners or partners, maybe referring to your financial advisor. Figure out what that is.
And we'll create a template. So if you're listening to this, either on social and on the website, I'll promise that.
Yep, I would say that challenge. And then another challenge would be to start thinking about what would it look like to post something daily. That's just a starting point. Maybe the first week you're just writing down like, well, if I was to post, it would be this, just to kind of get you in the practice of being creative in that way. And again, it's just telling the story of what you're doing, because I think a lot of people don't realize what they're doing is interesting and people want to hear about it. A lot of people might think, well, no one's going to care. This is my baking process or whatever, but it's actually interesting. And I think maybe start there. Think about what you would post each day, and then the following week put that into action and just get started. You got to start somewhere.
Cool, man. Yeah. Well, for Aaron and myself, Matt, we want to thank you for tuning into the kind of the second episode, because we did a pilot episode which we'll release in a couple days, and then we'll release this live, or publicly I should say, not live, for everybody. So again, thank you for tuning in to Marketing Vermont.